So this is a little tutorial for Illustrator text effects, the assignment number 9. So I've played with a couple of effects right here, well, a couple dozen effects that you can see in this document right here on this page. I made the word groovy there, the word Las Vegas, and the word grunge with textures in there. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see that Las Vegas has a lot of those extra little dots and extra double strokes, and then totally curvy, crazy, very, very Las Vegas-y. Groovy has some extra lines inside the text. And if I scroll down, the grunge word right there is also very grungy. It has a texture. The typeface itself has a texture, and then there's a texture inside the distressed typeface. So how do I do this? If I switch over to my view over there and switch to outline, you can see that this is how it's made. So it's very, very simple. You know, a couple of shapes here, and then the black letters here tells me that it's live type. Here it does not show that it's live type, but it is, and I will demonstrate that later. Switch back to my preview, and you can see when you download, when you select something there, this is what it does. It's just a plain block of text, right? Super, super simple. So if I'm going to recreate this guy right there, groovy, very, very simply, very, very quickly. So I'm going to switch over to my second page right here. I'm going to start first with a line. So we're going to use the line tool right here. Just going to click and drag with my shift key, press down so it's a straight line. And there's my line right here. I'm going to switch it to something a little bit more, a little funkier than that, so we can see it better. Higher contrast. There you go, a red line. And I'm just going to click and drag, press my Option or Alt key right here, click and drag it, and make a duplicate of it. I'm going to see if I'm actually have my views, smart guides turned on. There you go. So now you go. Now we have smart guides turned on. I can see my path, and if I drag things around, it's going in a straight line. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just select both of them, go into Effect. I should have done that on the first one, but I can do that with both. And I go Distort and Transform, and I go Zigzag down here. And here, that's a zigzag right there. You can make it smooth. Right now it's corners, and you can smooth it out. You can increase the size of it, so it's very wavy. You can increase the number of ridges per segment. So we're going to keep it around 6 or 7 or so. Yeah, that's plenty fine. Absolute, relative, right? And you have those options as well. So here, this is good. I'm going to go, of course, with my blend tool to create multiple lines in between. So click on the first one, click on the second, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 divisions in between. So I can switch over, I double click on my blend tool, and six divisions. I didn't count very well. And I can add, let's say, 15. A bit more than that, maybe 20. There you go, 20. Perfect. And all you have right now, again, if I switch back to Command Y or Control, I believe Y, all you have is just 2 lines and the effect of the blend tool that just creates that. So what I want to do here is I want to pick the first line right there, select the first line with my direct selection tool, and I want to apply a gradient on that line. So I'm just going to pick that gradient right here. So from the yellow to the red. And then the second one, I'm going to apply the same thing, or actually, probably another one, but I'm just going to apply the same thing. I'm going to go into my gradient tool right here. I can switch, reverse my gradient. So it goes from left to right instead of right to left. And I'm going to change my colors. So I'm going to delete those colors in between because there's just too many of them. I don't want it. Oops, I just added one by accident. Select that one, delete. I'm going to delete, double click on that anchor right here. I'm going to change the color. I'm going to make it purplish. And then the next one right here, I'm going to make it more like a raspberry color kind of thing. Oh, maybe, yeah, something orangey, maybe. There you go, a little bit more of that. Something like this. Doesn't matter, really. I'm just goofing off right now. So I'm going to select them both again. I'm going to change the stroke because it's a little thin, so I can see them better. And I'm going to type the word groovy. At this point, it's set in myriad black. It doesn't really matter. I can change that quickly. I'm going to use something that is a little bit more groovy-ish, such as the config ultra regular. I don't have very many fonts installed on this computer, so I'm just going to use that just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to make it big, as wide as my graphic, give or take. And it's a little too sparse, so I'm going to change my character right here. I'm going to change the kerning right there, the tracking, I should say. There you go. It's a little tighter, right? Make it a little tighter. And again, increase that. So my graphic right here in the background is a little too loose. So I want to bring that, so again, direct selection tool. I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And you see the line's getting tighter. So I want to make sure that that little corner right there, just above the G right there, it actually falls into the letter. And then same thing here, I'm going to bring it up, and I want to make sure that it's at the bottom of the Y without getting anything cropped off, such as like so, give or take. That's pretty good. At this point, there's a lot of lines, but that's okay. It's perfectly fine. I can always change it. I can always go back into my blend tool right here and then decrease that to, let's say 17. That's plenty, just like that. And all I have to do right now is, first of all, I'm going to copy this groovy word there, my letters. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to select both of those things, right? Both of those, my objects right here. Right click on that and make a clipping mask. Just like in Photoshop, you can put an image inside the text. And there's my groovy right there, my groovy text right there. So why I copied the text is because I want to go into edit and right there and go paste in front, but I want to go paste in back. And there's my black type. And I want to add maybe a stroke to it. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to make it white. I'm going to make it a fairly thick stroke. And change my fill to something that's not that bright. Maybe something groovy like that. Maybe my stroke should be the same thing, actually. So maybe the stroke should be the same color. There you go. So I have some groovy colors here. The original idea was I had it white and then fill as well in white. So I'm going to just wanting to see how thick my stroke was. It's going to add one more point just to make it really thick. And then I'm going to add an effect to that white text. So I'm just going to go into Effect, Stylize, and go. I can do a drop shadow. I can do an outer glow. I'm going to just do the basic drop shadow in there. And then this is my default right here. There's not very much going on. It's 0, 0, 0. So it is. That's the opacity. There is the offset of the stroke right there. So if I change the X and the Y axis, this is what it does, right? And then blurring it makes it fuzzy. So I'm just going to keep it actually 0 and 0. So it's right behind my object, just to create a little bit of a, kind of a glow around it. And I can change the color of it as well. Pick an awful good looking green, for example. And there you go. You have a little bit of an orange, a little bit of a green glow like this behind it. So it almost looks the same as my first document right there, my first page, right? Not quite, but almost. Because I have also the type actually in the background has a gradient from the green to green. So, but I'm just keeping it like this. Just you can go a little crazier like this. You can just bring that back to the front, and you can fill that as well. So let's do that. Actually, let's do this. Actually, yeah, it is. Let's do this. Let's make it funkier. Let's make it a blue gradient. And if I do that, well, nothing happens. It goes back to black. So this is why I wanted to demonstrate that. You have to go into, I'm going to pop my swatch panel right here, right out. And you have to go into your appearance panel right here, which is also under, view appearance right here. And what you have to do is you have to create a new fill at the bottom left corner of your appearance right there, because it's live text. So you're going to go create a new fill, switches to back. And there's, in your appearance, you have a fill right here. So you can go in there and then find your gradient, such as blue to transparent blue. At this point, you can go into your gradient panel. I'm going to close that window, gradient panel, and change your opacity, change your colors, etc. So right now it goes from 100% to 0%. So I'm going to make it 100%, and I'm going to change that color right here. I'm just going to make it bright and purple and groovy, baby. So that's how you create a gradient in text. So now I'm just going to, again, right click on it and then send to back. And now we have something groovy like this. I'm just going to put the swatches back in place in my window. And all I have to do here, I have, two objects, right? I have this one that has the lines and the other one underneath, right? So I can select both, group them, and now I can apply another effect. I can do a warp, such as wave, fish, rise, flag, whatever you want. So here I'm going to go a rise. I'm going to make it vertical. No, maybe not. No, horizontal. I'm going to do a positive, about 20 or so, 25. I'm going to change my horizontal a little bit so it goes a little bit from a bigger to a smaller letter, a little bit, a little bit more into perspective. I can change my vertical as well, which kind of warps things. If you really go all out, it's, it's far out. Excuse me, bad joke. Groovy, baby, far out, all that stuff. You know what I mean. So that's it, right? So this is, again, you have one word and overlapping with one being a clipping mask and the other one with a glow or a gradient or, or a drop shadow, with a gradient inside it. So that's my first option. My second option is, it's saving quickly, there you go. My second option is the Las Vegas one. So Las Vegas, we're going to do that same thing here. We're going to do Las Vegas. We're going to type it up first. I'm going to put an exclamation point. I'm going to make it big so we can see what we're doing. Nope, that didn't pick it up. There you go. Las Vegas. For this one, again, same thing. I'm going to create a gradient in the letters, right? I'm just going to switch over quickly. So there's a bit of a gradient within the letters, and this time it's a radial gradient, and there's all those extra strokes to it. So I'm going to start with filling it in with a gradient again. So I'm going to just pick that gradient again because I haven't saved my gradients in there, but you can save them as well. Edit it in there, make it radial, change the color again, just like earlier. Make it quite intense so we can see it. There you go, bright purple. We can delete those. We can just drag them off. You can click and drag them out of the window, and that also deletes them. And then change that color to a hot pink. So we are going Vegas, 100% Vegas right there. Hot pink. At this point, I want to add some strokes to my text, right? So this time, simple, just add a stroke. So we're going to make it a blue one, for example. It's going to be absolutely awful. Look at that. Lovely, lovely Las Vegas going on here. So the thing is, the trick is you create a fairly thick stroke at first, and then you go back into your appearance palette. This is what's happening. And I'm going to pull this off, so it's going to be right there. And this time, instead of creating a new fill, of course, I'm creating a new gradient, a new stroke, a new gradient, a new stroke. I'm going to make it thinner, so half the thickness of my blue one. So it's blue on blue by default. It always picks up the gradient, the stroke that you already have. And then I'm just going to change the color. So a little bit of color theory going on here. I'm going to go yellow. No, not yellow. I'm going to make it pink again. Oof, this is really difficult to look at. There you go, something like that. And I'm going to change that guy right here. I'm going to make it even thicker. And I'm going to change that guy right there. Going to make it a little thicker. You can also go into your stroke options right here, and you can round the corners of your stroke, and you can see my blue stroke right here was a square corner right here, and I can round the corner, and I can do the exact same thing on this guy as well, round the corners as well. So it makes it, you know, it softens the corners a little bit and makes it a little bit more, I suppose, I don't know, organic. So I have a stroke and a stroke on the same object. And again, I'm going to do a third one again. I'm going to go to the top right here, create a new one again, add a new stroke. And again, it's by default, it's always 4 points. So I'm going to make it yellow this time. And I'm going to make it fairly thin, like a 1 point. And then into my stroke panel right here, I'm going to round the caps as well. And what will that do is when I turn it into a dashed line, it makes dots. If I don't have the round caps, if I go just the butt caps or square, this is what it looks like. It looks like tiny little tick marks because my dash is like 0.01, right? So it's, if I increase the size of that dash, if I then make it sorry, 1 point like this, you have little squares. The gap is 2 points, right? That's what's happening. Again, if I make it super small, so 0.01, and use a round cap, it makes little circles basically. And you can change your dash line to fit like this, and it's a little better because they don't overlap. You can see earlier there are a couple of circles where, come on, get out of here. A couple of circles were overlapping, right? So I can change that at will right here. So I'll go back in there. See, if I click on that, you see the dotted lines right there. The dots, I mean, overlap right there. So I can fix that right here. And that's how you make multiple strokes on one text right here, one text object. What I have done here, the next one is I'm just going to put this appearance window on the side here. What I've done here is I created also those crazy shapes out of it. Now, how do you do that? It's as simple as this. You select your text object right here, and you go into your control panel, your control bar. I mean, at the top right there, it says make envelope. So you have two options. If you click on the little tiny little toggle arrow beside it, you have make envelope options. You have a make with a warp or make with a mesh. And this is what I've done is I make with a mesh. And if I hit preview right here, there's my mesh. So I see the number of columns, the number of rows, and this is plenty. This is, you know, you can change the number of columns to less than that if you want to. You can add more rows, but I'm just going to keep it down to 2. So it's a little bit more manageable. And click OK. And now, if I switch back to my preview right here, it's this. All you see is the mesh. You don't see the text anymore. So I switch over to my direct selection tool, and this is what happens is you can select each anchor or each path and drag it around. And oh, come on, move right there. Drag it around. Oh, it doesn't work anymore. There you go. Drag them around, and that warps your text like this, just like that. And each anchor has its own handles, so you can drag them around, and it completely warps the text very, very quickly like this. And you can go as crazy as you want. You can select multiple anchors at once. You can move them with the keyboard, the arrows on your keyboard if you want to be a little bit more precise. You can just drag them around. You might be able to rotate them as well. You select them, you go with a rotate tool. By default, your rotation point of reference is in the middle, but you can just, you know, rotate that right here or drag that rotation anchor point, which is very, very light faded blue here, and it'll rotate from this anchor right here. And as I rotate it right here, you can see it rotates around this anchor point right here. So you can just go bananas and have some fun with it. Just go crazy up to a point where it's completely not readable anymore. You can almost collapse the letters together. And that's the crazy part about this this mesh tool is it's still live, right? It's still live text. So I'm going to move this groovy out of the way. And if you want to change the Las Vegas to something else like Hollywood, all you have to do is double click on that object that you have right there. You get into the isolation mode. That's why everything fades out. And now you have access to the word again. So double click on the word and then change it to Hollywood. And now you have Hollywood like that. Get out of the isolation mode, double click on your desktop. And now you can also add a warp again on this thing. So you have another effect. You can just go with a warp, arch it, for example, maybe down to 0, and 0 here, and just, you know, give it a little bit of a warp or flag or whatever you want. Since it's the Hollywood Hills, might as well do the flag so it looks like it's wrapping around the hills. And there you have one word, multiple stroke, mesh warp, and another warp afterwards. So that's what you can do with this. I'm going to save that quickly so I don't lose things, or if it crashes, at least I have the original file. Always save your files as you go. So for the next one, the third one right here, I have something a little bit different. I have a typeface that is already quite distressed. So I'm going to copy that and see if I can just paste it in right there. Grunge. And this time I'm going to pick that font actually that already has some texture to it, and it's called Danger Zone Warning. And it's a font, it's a free typeface from dafont.com. I'm going to make it a little bigger. You can see it already has some texture, and it's, you know, it's a little crazy typeface, but it's fun, right? And what I'm doing here, I'm going to do the same thing as the groovy thing with the lines. I'm going to turn this object right here, this text object, into a clipping mask. So I already have some texture files that I've downloaded. They're on my desktop, and they came as JPEGs, RGB, or PNG RGB, and I can't do very much with that. So what I can do is I can show you. I can just place one, and then I'll show you the graphics in question. So I'm just going to find them quickly. They are my textures, and of course the halftone textures right there. So you can see that there's lots of PNGs in there, and there's black and white. So they're also yeah, so they're all PNGs. So the PNGs is, you know, some of them are transparent. So if I click on the first one right there, as my example right there, I'll place this thing in there, and then I click and drag, and this is my texture, right? So it's got a transparent background you can see through, but I can't do anything with it because it's an RGB file, it's a PNG. If I want to colorize this image, I can go into my swatches and I can select whatever color and nothing happens. So this is not what I want. So I want to go first into Photoshop, and I want to change my my image into a grayscale image and save as a TIFF. So color mode, grayscale, and then save as a TIFF. And this is what I'm going to place in this document right here. So I'm going to go back to my place option right here. As you can see, there's a BMP. I tried with a bitmap, and that didn't work. So I made a TIFF grayscale, and that seems to be working. So I'm going to place that guy again, and click and drag across my word, because that gives me the size. Ooh, that actually gives me the size of my image right there. And the cool thing about a grayscale image is now you can colorize it. You can make it red, blue, orange, whatever color you want. You can't make a gradient. I tried. It doesn't work. If I click on gradient, it tells me that it cannot be done. So I'm going to pick that color right here, maybe a dirty grayish kind of thing color. And I'm going to place it behind my text right here, arrange, send to back. And again, I'm just going to pick that word right here, actually select both, and then right click again, and again, make a clipping mask as we did earlier for the groovy word. So the thing is, what I have right now is I have a word that has the texture in it, but it's not transparent. It has that white background. So how do I add a color to it, right? Go back in there. This one has a color in the background, right? So it's got the image, the green image, and it has the brown color. So how do I do that? So all I have to do is, first of all, I'm going to release the clipping mask. And I'm going to change the blending option of my image. So I go into my appearance right here, And this is my opacity right here. So I can change my opacity, and that's great, but it's going to fade it out. What I want is I want to change my opacity, my blending mode, just like in Photoshop. I want to make it multiply. And it doesn't change very much, except when I drag it over the word Hollywood, then you can see that the colors actually overlaps and gets richer, right? So I'm going to drag this around until I have the right texture in the right spot, basically, kind of like right here. And again, select both, make clipping mask. And now when I move this up on top, it's semi-translucent, and you can see the color through. So that's what I want to do. But how do I bring a color inside my letters? All I have to do is, again, back to Effects, back to Stylize, back to Drop Shadow. And this time, instead of making it fuzzy like a blur like this, so I keep it at 0 and 0, right, on the X and Y axis. Instead of having a blur, I'm going to put 0. And now it sticks to the shape of my letters. So if I move the letters again up, I have a 75% opacity, so you can still see the color through, right? You can still see whatever is in the background of it. So it still influences, let's say I have another background as an example. Let's say I have another background behind it, another object behind it. You can see that the, I'm going to do this instead. You can see that the color in the background influences the color of my green. It makes it darker, and you can see the switch right there, right at the boundary of the box. So I want to have my my green 100%. Switch back again into my effects right here. Stylize, drop shadow. Oh, actually cancel that. Sorry, I should have gone into the appearance because it's already set. I can go back to my appearance panel. Click on drop shadow, and I can edit that drop shadow. Instead of opacity of 75, I make it 100, just like that. And I can change the color, of course, because I'm using some kind of brown, so in brown on brown. So I'm just going to go with a bright orange, so it makes it a little bit more, you know, warning kind of colors. Excuse me. Now what I can do here, and this is the fun part, is if I bring a warp to it, such as an arc or arch, for example, as you can see, what I can do here is I can only warp the text. The image that creates that extra texture, the image does not warp with the text. Right? So it's kind of limiting, right? Because you can only do so much. So here, as I'm bending it above the edge of my image, it gets cut off, right? If I'm bending it below, my image is still in there. So I still have something in there to work with. So I'm going to keep it there at about, you know, -20. I don't want to go too crazy here. But what you can do here, another crazy trick what you can do is here. You copy again, you select with your direct selection tool, you copy and you paste that text again that you have. And of course, there's no fill right now, so I'm just gonna, because it's a clipping mask, remember I just copied the clipping mask, so I'm gonna make it, let's say dark, and a really dark brown right there. I'm gonna make it a little smaller, right, like so. And I'm going to select both, and I'm going to use again my blend tool. And select the first one right here, second one back there. And this is what happens. Whoops, something's going on. I'm going to try, see if we can do this. Specify the distance. I'm going to make it 1 pixel, so 1 px to make it really nice and smooth. Hopefully Illustrator is not going to crash on me, because that would be a shame. And see if we can smooth it out. That may not work. I'm afraid Illustrator has crashed.